Hello! In this video, we're going to find an equation for the hyperbola with center at -3, 1, focus at -3, 6, and vertex at -3, 4. Then we'll graph the equation. Since the center is at -3, 1, we know that it's not centered at the origin. Also, we define the center as HK. So we know that H equals -3 and K is equal to 1. Since the center, foci, and vertices all have an x-coordinate of -3, our transverse axis will be parallel to the y-axis. Let's begin by plotting the points that we're given. So here we have our points for the center at -3, 1, the focus at -3, 6, and vertex at -3, 4. The distance from a center to a foci is 5 units, so we would say C is equal to 5. Or to be more specific, plus or minus 5. The distance from a center to a vertex is A equals plus or minus 3. We can find B using the formula B squared equals C squared minus A squared. So B squared equals 25 minus 9, B squared equals 16, or B equals plus or minus 4. We can also plot some of the other points that we're able to determine from our given information. So since we know our center is at -3, 1, and our vertex is at -3, 4, we know that counting down 3 units will give us the next vertex. So we'll have a vertex at -3, -2. We'll also have a focus at -3, -4. The equation of a hyperbola is y minus 1 squared over 9 minus x plus 3 squared over 16 equals 1. We know that 16 goes below the x terms and 9 goes below the y terms because the transverse axis is parallel to y and our major axis is parallel to the x-axis. The equation of our asymptotes is given by x minus h equals plus or minus b over a times y minus k. We can substitute our values in to get x plus 3 equals plus or minus 4/3 times y minus 1. For plotting these points, there are a couple of ways you can go about it. In our case, we'll use Desmos, just to save a little bit of time in terms of plotting individual x and y points. So you can see here on our Desmos screen, in the equations in the upper left, we have our equation, and that gives us our arcs in red for our hyperbola. I've also plotted the foci -3, 6 and -3, -4. Those are our blue and green points respectively. And then I've graphed the asymptotes. So the asymptotes were x plus 3 equals plus or minus 4/3 times y minus 1. So I graphed each of the cases for positive and negative separately, and that gives us our black and purple lines. Now, writing this out by hand, the asymptote is best represented by a dotted line, but here for this graph you get the general idea. Okay, so this is how we would find our equation for the hyperbola, and then you can graph it using Desmos, or alternatively you can plot values and plug in chug, which takes a little bit longer. Anyway, this concludes our example, and I hope you found it helpful.